back here downstairs at the boiler, and yeah, so this is a really odd issue. In previous video, I had gone over how to jumper out the safeties, and because the boiler was not firing, it was having random issues, and as it turns out, it was one of the safeties. So NTI actually has a pretty good video on that also, on how to jumper out the safeties and see if the boiler fires. If it fires, then one of the safeties might be bad or indicating a problem. So, but I ended up having, the boiler was clicking on and off, and it was not firing properly. It would fire, but then it would turn off mid-cycle randomly. What an odd problem. Jumpered out the safeties, still had the issue, so it's not the safeties. The other thing you could do is pull the red wires apart and just join them, just join the two red wires together with a jumper, or that's how you jumper out the safeties. But also what you can do is check from where the red wires go. You can go the other way and use your multimeter, and if you have no resistance between the two, the black and the white here, then you know the safeties are all good. Anyway, and that they're not indicating a problem. So in this case, the issue that after about 5 hours of sitting here, why is this firing and not firing and firing and not firing? I finally looked at the zone controller, and the zone controller, this I changed out last year. This was bad. Internally, there's something going wrong with this, but this gives me a really interesting readout as to what's up. And what I noticed when this was clicking on, clicking off, clicking on, clicking off, was that thermostat demand, this light was not necessarily lit when the zone controller was calling for heat. So the zone controller would have an on light, let's say on my water heater, but this would not be lit. So the zone controller, all it is there's a relay in there, and the relay closes, and when this is actually calling for heat, it closes and it puts these two contacts together effectively. This should not be jumpered, it's jumpered now, ignore that. But there's a thermostat cable that goes from there into there, and when this effectively jumpers it, it calls for heat. And when it does that, this light, thermostat demand, which is over here, should be on. As it turns out, what I noticed was when this was calling for heat, the light was on, the relays were on, but this light wouldn't light up. I said, well, that's interesting. So this unit is always sending a signal out via these two, and when it gets jumpered, the signal returns to here and tells the whole unit to turn on, and then that light lights up. Well, that light wasn't lighting up. So I went and checked, and sure enough, where did it go? Right here. Here's my two that are supposed to go there. What you do is you check between these two, which comes out of here, of course. Check between those two, and if there's actually, if it's jumpered, if the relay has closed when this is calling for heat, then it should be good. Well, it hadn't. Something was wrong in here, not with the boiler. So I jumper the boiler, everything turns on fine. Boiler comes up to temperature, self-regulates, everything perfectly. So the problem lies within the zone controller. And this is where it gets even more weird. So 5 hours later, I figured out it's probably something in here. So I end up swapping out the relays, which are underneath here. I don't worry about that right now. I ended up swapping out relays to no avail. Because usually I figured maybe it's a relay that went bad. Nope, that's not the case either. What is the case? If you look real close, there's a crater around these contacts. I have to resolder those joints because they are giving an intermittent contact. How's that? This is a Taco 6-zone zone controller, 506. Actually, I forgot the model number. This is, yeah, SR 506 EXP switching relay. And for some reason, I think that's what the problem is. And that's why this thing had an intermittent issue. It was clicking on and off. And if you touched the relays, or it went like this when this was up there, if you touched the relays, it would actually turn on. So if you touch the relays and it turns on, you might have a bad solder joint. Unreal. Now we're probably 8 hours into this, figuring this out. And it's going to take me a grand total of 30 seconds to solder that, and yeah, get that back up and running. So I'm going to check all these solder joints, in fact, and see how it goes. If this is the problem, I will let you guys know. I don't have any battery left on the phone, but I did want to give you guys an update. Anywho, long story short, you're having an intermittent issue. You have to go through the steps and figure out where the issue actually is. And after I did all the jumpering of my safeties, which is more typically one of the safeties in here ends up going bad, either the flame switch or the pressure switch or the temperature or thermostat, one or the other, one of the switches can be bad, in which case between the black and this white, so on the far side of the reds, essentially, if you pop the reds off, the black and the white, then you should have no resistance between those two contacts. If you do, something's wrong with one of the safeties. But if you don't, and you're having some clicky issue, you have to look elsewhere. And then the next thing to do, in my mind, would be jumper these two contacts and make sure the boiler turns on and self-regulates. So go check out the NTI videos. They're very good on how to jumper these out if you're having that type of issue. But that's all I got for you. If I figure anything else out, I will let you guys know. Thanks for watching.